So as I said in the introduction, this DVD is really designed for beginner, intermediate, and advanced level players. You're going to find all three levels embedded within the instruction on this DVD. Okay, so for beginner players, if you're looking at this stuff, and I'm kind of breezing through this stuff kind of fast, that's what the music is here for. That's why you can go back, watch the DVD over and over again. Okay, I'll make sure that the information that I go through here, I go through it slow enough so that you'll be able to grasp it. But I also want to give the intermediate and advanced level player some of these nice, rich chord voicings. So let's move on now to major seventh chords. Okay, and if you take a look at the major seventh sheet, you'll see that we have a ton of different chords here. There's like 34 different chords that I've written out. I'm going to go through most of them right now, okay? But let's talk about what a chord voicing is. A voicing is just how you arrange the notes in a chord, okay? So, for instance, here I have my C major triad. So it's a C, E, and a G, okay? And I have C major 7, C, E, G, B. Okay, so the notes in a C triad are just basically C, E, G. Now, right now, this is a perfectly fine voicing for this chord. But now let's say that I want to put my C down here, my E over here, and then G way up here. That's a fine voicing as well, okay? That'd be more like an orchestral voicing, you know, but you wouldn't probably use something like this on the piano because it's such a big stretch, right? But what about that? That's fine also. Okay? So it's just how I'm arranging the notes in the chord. A lot of times when voicing chords, I'm looking for smooth motion between chords, okay? And that's called voice leading, okay? So I'm leading the voices to the next chord. Now, this is how I want you to think about this, because this is the way it works. Say I have 4 notes in a chord, or, you know, since I was doing a triad, let's just do 3 notes. I have my triad right here, 1 3-note chord, and then I have another triad right here. Now, I can move from here way up here, okay? But what makes more sense is if I start to like do this kind of thing where I move, and it's like, okay, now this note goes up, this note goes down a little bit, okay? For instance, say I want to go from my C major triad to my F major triad. Well, what makes a lot more sense is to do something like that rather than just move up. Okay? Remember also I'm moving my fingers so you can see which notes I'm playing easier. So here I have C, E, and G. Right? You should play with your fingers out like that. Okay? So C, E, and G. Right? And if I want to move up to F, that's just a big jump. That's kind of silly to move like this. Whereas this is a lot easier. Now, I've talked about this before, like with slash chords and stuff, right? This is an F over C chord, right? So this is F over C, right? Or F chord or F major triad in second inversion. The point is though, is that it's easier to move like this than just moving like that. If I want to go to my G chord, my G major triad, right? G, B, D, what's an easy way of doing that? Well, think and say, okay, do I have any notes of the G chord in my hand right now? Oh yeah, G, B, D. Oh, I got a G right there. Keep that G exactly where it is. Don't move its position, which means keep it as the top note, all right? And don't move off of that. So I'm going to keep that stuck down. These two are going to move. So I need G, B, and D. Well, could I do this, go over? No, because this has to remain the top note. G, oh, B, and D right there. All right? So you see how I did that? Let me say that I'm going to go from my G chord here to a C chord. Right? Well, here's G, G, B, and D. Right now, do I have any of the same notes between the two chords? Well, what are the notes in the C chord? C chord is, C, let me do it up here, C, E, and G. All right, so I need C, E, and G. Do I have a C? No. Do I have an E? No. Do I have a G? Yes, I have it right here. Keep that right there. Move these notes out of the way. That note is going to stay there. Same finger, same position. All right, it's going to be the bottom note. So I need a C, E, and a G. Got the G, need a C and an E. Oh, there I go, right there. Okay? So that is basic chord voicings. Okay? It's just an easy way of voice leading from one chord to the next chord. Okay? you want to have as smooth voice leading as possible. Okay, so rather than moving all over like this, you want to be able to. You want to be able to keep your hand pretty much centered. All right. Okay. So now moving on to the major chords. You see that we have C major triad, C major 7, okay? Now if I continue on, I have C major 9, right? And I put in what your tensions are that you could use on a C major 7 chord. So this is pretty much what you can use on a C major 7 chord. When you see C major 7 or C major 6, 9 and sharp 11 usually work quite well. Now 6, right? C major 6 usually replaces the 7th. So instead of playing C major 7, you'd play C major 6. Why would you do that? Good example is you're going to end on the root of the chord. This is very common. You'll find this in the real book all over the place. I don't have my real book in front of me, but you'll see something that says, okay, end on the note C, that's the melody note, all right? And it says C major 7 over here, okay, to play the chord. Well, if I play C major 7 with the melody note of C, what do you hear? Ugh, doesn't sound very good. It's because this interval right here is called a minor ninth. Now remember, we talked about intervals before, right? That's a ninth, right? So a minor ninth would just be, flatting the ninth, okay? Another way of looking at it is it's just a half step above the octave. So you see there's the octave, half step above. That minor ninth interval we want to avoid like the plague, all right? It is not a very nice interval chord-wise, okay? Almost all the time you're going to avoid it, okay? Unless you're an advanced player and you know how to utilize it in a way that will work for the song that you're playing. I would say if you're a beginner or intermediate level player, just stay away from those minor ninths, okay? Half steps, ironically enough, are something different, okay? Half steps are okay as long as the half step is not close to the melody. So if you're going to do this, that would not be good either because you have that half step encroaching upon the melody. Imagine that two singers were singing a note that was a half step apart, all right? The soprano or the lead melody note would get pretty upset at the person just a little bit underneath them because it's going to want to pull the ear, okay? It's going to pull them out of tune, right? It's the same thing here with this chord. When you have a half step next to the melody, it just encroaches upon the melody and you can't really even understand what the melody is anymore. So, what we do is instead of playing major 7, we play major 6th. And all is well. Now, see how nice that sounds? Rather than little tense. Now, if it was something like, if we were ending on the 9th or something like that, or the 3rd, that's fine. But ending on the root, play a major 6th instead. Now, you see the chord voicing I have here? Just the root and the 6th in the left hand, and then the 3rd and the 5th, and then my melody note. Okay? So, that's C6. Now, if I go through, and what I've done is I've made all of these different voicing options here for you. So I have, you'll see it says LH root, LH R7, LH R3. Let me explain what the heck this stuff means. LH is left hand, RH is right hand. So LH means left hand is playing the root. So here I have the root, and then I have the rest of the chord right here. So I'm on measure 6, right? The one with the box with the 6 in it, okay? So it's just a basic C major triad voicing. Here's major 7. Once again, I'm moving my fingers so you can see which notes I'm playing, right? So E, G, B right here, right? Okay. So this is the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th. Here's my root down here. C major 9, okay? This is 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay. This is a common chord, C, 6, 9. Okay. This chord right here, notice how I have the 6th here, and I also have the 9th. Okay? Or just plain old C6. Here's some nice sounding chords. This is C major 7, sharp 11. Right? So that's the 3rd, the sharp 11th, the 7th, and the 9th. And here is another inversion of that, right? The 5th, the 7th, the 3rd, and the sharp 11. And finally, I can do it like that as well. Or I can bring it down here. Okay? And then for C major, for the next line here, for C major 7, I have root 7 in the left hand. And I have 3 and 5 in the right hand, or 3, 5, 7 in the right hand, 3, 5, 7, 9 in the right hand. Once again, 6, 9 right here, okay? Notice I can still have 7 and 6 together. It sounds nice, actually. All right, here is C major 7 with the 9. This is nice. It has a nice little crush in there, right? A little cluster, we call that, with the 3rd and the 9th. And here's C major 9 with sharp 11, or C major 7, add 9, sharp 11, okay? Now, I'll end up talking about this more later on, but let me pause for a second and talk about chord symbols. A lot of times you just see C major 7 written. And they're not going to tell you, okay, make sure you put in a 9, make sure you put in the sharp 11, you know. They'll just write C major 7, and then it's up to you to add the 9 or the sharp 11 or whatnot. But how do you know which one to add? How do you know, should you add the 9, the sharp 11? What should you add, all right? First of all, everything is dependent upon the melody, okay? So whatever the melody is, you don't want to interfere with the melody. Remember I was talking about that half step, I was talking about the minor 9th, okay? Nothing, also, I should tell you, nothing ever goes above the melody, all right? So if the melody is here, right, and it says play a C major 7 chord, all right, well, we know better, we know to play it as a C6, but we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't play, oh, well, let's do that. Not if the C is the melody. You're not going to play any note above that. Always keep your melody on top, okay? You'll see later on in the DVD when I talk about the real world examples why that, you know, why you want to keep the melody on the top as well. So in the left hand, we have a lot of different options of what we could do. We could do just the roots, we could do root 7s, we can do root 3s, we can do just root 5s, we can arpeggiate, okay? And I'm going to talk about that in between this chapter and the next chapter. I'm going to talk about just some different voicing techniques for the left hand, and basically what it is that, you know, we, you know, how a jazz pianist is going to approach chords at the piano, right, and using them in songs. All right, so finally moving on here, we have root 3 in the left hand, okay? So here's 7 and 9, here's 6 and 9, right? Here's, 7, 6, sorry, 7, 9, and 5. I'm on measure 22 right now. Here's C major 7 with a 9th, right? And a sharp 11. This is a nice sounding chord. This is a nice pop sounding chord. Okay. All right, so you have all these different chord voicings here. Now, if I, on the very bottom here, measure 27, it says harmonizing a scale. If I just had this scale, okay, so here's the notes. Why did I choose these notes? Well, because these are common notes that you would harmonize using a C major 7 chord. Remember, we wouldn't use F, right, because it's not really in a major 7 chord. We wouldn't use any of these notes because they're well outside. So if I had this note as the melody, I could harmonize, and it said C major 7, I could harmonize below it like this. If this note was the melody, well, I can do that. If E was the melody, I could simply do that. Could I do this as well? Sure, okay. Could I do that as well? Well, sure, of course, okay. Now for this, F sharp, there's a nice sounding chord, C, E, G, B, D, F sharp, okay. If G was the melody, this would be a nice voicing, okay. If A was the melody, here's a great sounding voicing right here. Here's C major 7, C, E, G, B in the left hand, and then D, F sharp, A in the right hand. If B was the melody, see what I'm doing? Just rooting 5 down here with my 9, my 3, my 5, and the 7th. And if C was the melody, there's an option for you. C6, and I have the 3rd and the sharp 11th. I can that as well. Crush the ninth in there. So those are just some options for you to mess around with. Okay. What I want to tell you is that this major chord voicings unit here is just to kind of get you understanding what the heck is a major seventh chord, okay, and all these different ways of playing a major seventh chord. Later on in the DVD, when I get into these magic fourth voicings, the wonder chord, upper structure triads, this is where you're going to see, oh, okay, this is where it all leads to, okay, but you got to make sure that you understand all of these notes, right, and know how to use all these notes. So a great way of practicing this sheet is to start at chord number 1 and go to chord number 34 and just play through each one of them. Now, one thing that I did not do for you is I did not write down what's the root, what's the third, what's the fifth, okay? What I would suggest doing, a great exercise for you, is print off this sheet, print off a couple of copies for yourself, and on one copy, like let's take measure 14 for instance, okay? Measure 14 is this. Right on this bottom note on the music, put an R next to it because it's the root. You can also put a 1, okay, but usually when it's the root, you just use R. And then for this note, what would you put there? You put a 7, okay? Now for E, what would you put? You put 3. And then for the G, you put 5. So you see the notes, right? I know you're not going to be able to see this all that well in the video, but you see these notes, right? From the bottom up to the top, you just put these numbers right next to the notes. This way, you really start to understand, oh, so I have my 7th, I have my root and my 7th in the left hand, and then I'm playing the 3rd and the 5th in the right hand. This type of analysis, if you carry this over onto other arrangements that you get off the internet or you purchase or whatever, you have a book of arrangements like, oh, they play like this, like really cool, like, oh, I love that chord, and like, oh, like that. Well, what is it that they're doing? Okay, well now you start to analyze it, and this is how you learn your chords. Chords are a vocabulary, just like everything else in jazz, okay, and in music in general, okay? It's a vocabulary, so the more you can add to it, the more you're going to understand all these different voicings and have them to use at your arsenal, okay? So it's a great way of going through it. So have fun with the major 7 chords, really work through those, and then the next chapter here we're going to move on to minor 7s.